And this book focuses on the movement of a muscle. Just one moment, one split second in Bruce Ismay's life. The moment he decided to leave the sinking Titanic and step inside one of the third to last lifeboats leaving on the starboard side of the ship. The 49 years before this moment hadn't been particularly interesting, and the 25 years following this moment weren't particularly interesting. And Ismay wasn't, in general, a very interesting man. He was a very ordinary man, which is a point I try and stress again and again and again in this book. He never wanted to be noticeable. He never wanted to do anything heroic or remarkable. But he did this one extremely interesting thing, which was to leave the Titanic as it was sinking, as opposed to doing what every other man on board of his class and generation were doing, which was staying on board and doing what they considered to be their duty and going down with the ship. So what I wanted to do in this book was focus intensively, microscopically, on who Ismay was when he made that decision. Because I mean, I think we've all made snap decisions. We've all acted instinctively in our lives and sort of lived to regret it. We've all sent that send button, press the send button on an email we shouldn't have sent, and it's been catastrophic, or turned the wrong way in a car or something. And Ismay did something that I think he enormously regretted afterwards, having made this movement of a muscle. And I want to think about why he acted as he did on that night. What I suggest is that had the Titanic hit the iceberg 3 hours earlier, he might not have acted the same way. Had the Titanic hit the iceberg the day before, he quite possibly wouldn't have acted in the same way. It was something about that moment. So what I tried to do in the book is to focus on Bruce Ismay's last day on the Titanic, the kind of things that were in his mind, who he was on that last day. And I also tried to put him in a larger perspective. What sort of a man was he? What was his background? What was his relationship to his father? What was his relationship to his class background? All of these things are absolutely vital in giving Ismay a kind of psychological profiling that we need to understand why he did something that was so against the kind of the cut of his education and his upbringing. He'd loaded 8 lifeboats, and then when he saw that there was that no one left on the deck at all, he described the deck he was leaving as absolutely empty. When he saw there was no one left at all, he says, he took the chance when it came to me. He said, I took the chance when it came to me, and why shouldn't I? The boat he just loaded with Lebanese women and children was about to go down, and just as it had started to be lowered, he jumped into it. And jumping into it alongside him was a man who was never, ever, ever mentioned in any of the inquiries, and whose leaving the Titanic was seen as absolutely and totally unquestionably all right. And this was an American kind of millionaire playboy called William E. Carter, who'd just been on a shopping exhibition in Europe, like a lot of the American first-class travellers, and was bringing back a fancy new Renault car that was in the hold of the ship. So Ismay and William E. Carter both left the ship together. Now, William E. Carter said that he left the Titanic having seen his wife and children safely into a boat on the other side, on the port side of the ship. Apparently this wasn't the case. His wife and children were still on the Titanic when he left it, and his wife divorced him afterwards on grounds of desertion on the Titanic. And so in a sense, he did get his comeuppance, but none of William Carter was never called to any of the Titanic inquiries. He was never asked to explain his survival in the same way that Ismay was. So that's kind of interesting contrast. So these two white, tall, handsome young European men
stepped into this boat filled with, so there were 4 Chinese stowaways and Lebanese women and children. Now, Ismay's saying he left behind him an empty ship is quite a curious statement, because evidently the ship wasn't empty. There were 1,500 people left on the ship. I think that what Ismay must have meant by that is that there were no more women and children on the deck. I don't know. I mean, Ismay stuck to his story absolutely thoroughly. As far as he was concerned, I think he genuinely thought he was leaving behind him an empty ship. It's just one of the many things we have to kind of leave and move on from in Ismay's account of his actions. I'm not trying in this book to, I'm not wanting to judge Ismay. Ismay has been very judged by history. He's been spectacularly judged by the press and by the films about the Titanic and by the world in the last 100 years. And what interests me as a writer is how Ismay judged himself. What it was like for him to be him and to live with his conscience. And so I'm trying to kind of see it from his point of view.